Welcome back to Secrets to Short-Term Rental Success. My name is L'Oreal Keaton. I am super excited for this show because I have my friend David with me on the channel. David is a real estate investor, and for the last, not quite a year, I have been his property manager. And we wanted to bring you a story about an Airbnb that is David's that maybe wasn't doing so well at the beginning and now is, and how we can all learn about what to do when a real estate deal is going wrong, particularly in the short-term rental space. So I'm super excited to have David here. We spend a lot of time talking on the phone about his property, and now we're on a video chat, which is amazing. So I'm real excited to have him here. So David, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this space.
Thank you so much, L'Oreal, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy to be face to face with you. Usually we are on the phone, and this is really nice. I like that. So my name is David. I live in the Los Angeles area. I have some long-term rentals here, and I ventured into short-term rentals during the COVID pandemic. Really, I was on my own or with my family, stuck inside and doing a lot of research. So around 2021, I started looking at other ways to sort of maximize income for my investments, and it led me to short-term rentals. And being in Southern California, I realized that this was not going to be the best market for that. We have a lot of rental restrictions and rules and regulations on that. So I started looking elsewhere in the country.
How did you find what? Because we're in a small town in North Carolina. It's a great market, actually. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's a fun place to be. It's a quiet area, but we're doing really well. How did you find it, like across the country? What brought you to that area?
So it was really interesting for me. I started by looking at actually bigger cities, not the biggest cities, but I was looking at growing cities, and Los Angeles is a really big, expensive, vast city, and so I was looking for things that were not Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Boston, like none of those big, huge hubs. I was looking for sort of the second tier cities, more like the Charlotte, the Indianapolis, maybe one of the Texas cities. Pick which one. Probably not Dallas. That's too big. But
Yeah.
one of the second level cities, I guess, in those areas, Salt Lake City, those types of things. I reached out on Bigger Pockets to find actually various different to find agents in the area to talk to me about them. Boise, Idaho was another one that I was looking at very much, and I pinned down what I liked about certain areas, and it turned out that Charlotte was one of the areas I really liked a lot, and I realized I hadn't been there, but I got in touch with a couple agents there and some property managers in the area, and I started talking to them and getting an idea for what the area was like, and I think it was right after the first vaccine came out, I got jabbed, and then I went to Charlotte to check out the area. And when I was there, I found I talked to my real estate agent who I had not met before in person, but I met them in person, and we started talking about the areas and the vacation areas within 2 hours, and that led me to the Western North Carolina mountains and the Smoky Mountains. And I had heard of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge and those areas, but I never really thought about the North Carolina side. And so I took a little trip out to Asheville. Super cool town, really fun, like really exciting. Drove around the Maggie Valley area and the Waynesville area, and I was just like, this is gorgeous. And we're so close to, like, we're 2 hours away from a city with with a million people in it, and there's plenty of people driving out here. And this is where we have an area in Southern California that people go all the time. We've got a few of them. We've got Palm Springs and Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear. And those are all 2 hours away from Los Angeles. And I'm like, this is where people from Charlotte and people from that area come to on vacation when they want to go on a driving vacation and stay in a cabin. This is exactly where they go. So
Yeah, that's really smart. It's true. I think that's one of the things, like when people are talking about the markets, and like as we know, it's kind of changing. It was really hot in 21, and then it's kind of leveled off a bit. And one of the things that I'm super grateful for in like the Smoky Mountain market is it's a place where people drive, and it's a place where people can afford to go. They don't have to get on an airplane, and people come, our guests are coming from all over. We get people from Michigan and South Carolina and a lot of people from Florida. And I'm just amazed. So it's awesome that your research kind of took you there, because we kind of got our first investment there kind of by accident too, and didn't really know. But once you go there, it's gorgeous, and it's still kind of a sleepy town in a good way, but a lot of people go there and a lot of people drive. So I feel like even in a not as great economy as things just ebb and flow, it's still a place that's affordable for people to go.
The way I think about it is that if you're taking, a family of four and a dog, or five or whatever it is, and you pack up the car, and like, if you don't have to buy five plane tickets, you just saved yourself thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So you can maybe spend a little bit more on where you stay, or you're in the mountains, so it's like going to be beautiful and you're going to have a great time with the family. And maybe part of the trip is the road trip part of it, and that's exciting too.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
I
I want
love
you to
that
tell
about the
everybody
area.
about your house. Yeah, I want you to tell everybody about your house and like how you picked that particular one because I know we've talked about this, but what you said is really salient. There's a lot of people go to the mountains and they don't really leave the cabin or the home that they rent. Like they might go do a little bit of sightseeing, but a lot of times it's just a place where people want to bring family and friends and like go to a cool spot that like is different from where they live and they can just like hang out and spend time together and like get delivered groceries and that kind of stuff. Like we get a lot of that. Like people do like a staycation but in the mountains. And your house is like perfect for that. So tell me about the deal. Like how did you find it? And what were some of the mechanics of the situation and how you bought it?
So my real estate agent would send me a bunch of listings, and then I would go and look on Redfin, Zillow, whichever Realtor.com, whichever platform of the moment I was using, and uh, I would look around at the houses that he would send me, as well as other houses in the area that looked like they were roughly the same price. And I was wondering, why this one versus that one, and trying to figure out what made the most sense. Every single house I saw, there was something that about them that you could see in the pictures, especially when you look towards the latter half of the pictures. Like, oh, you can really, if you focus in on them, you can see there's either bad quality workmanship, or oh, you can see like some beat up trucks in the corner of the picture that, like, oh, that's the neighbor's stuff, and maybe you don't want that there. And when you're looking for a short term rental, you want to try to make sure, at least when you first start doing your research, that you don't have any red flags right away.
For
Um,
sure, for sure.
so this house came up, and it had been sitting on the market for a little bit, was unusual in and of itself, especially in
For that
2021.
time, yeah,
And
absolutely.
one of the reasons it was sitting for a while was because it was booked, and they didn't want to show it while there were guests there. So it was already set up as an Airbnb.
Okay.
It was a little bit known as a bit of a party house. So because
Thanks for
of that,
telling me that now.
um,
Just kidding.
well,
Now that I'm your property manager, but I didn't know that. I could
by the
see
time,
why though, because it's a big house, but
yeah,
okay.
by the time you got to it, nobody was partying in there anymore.
No, no one was there. I'm sorry.
it,
That's okay.
it was a bit sparse by the time you got there. But
Yeah.
so people were staying there, and so it seemed like it was running well. It was furnished. It looked good. The pictures looked good. There weren't a lot of red flags. There were a couple things that I wanted specifically checked out. There's a double deck. There's a deck on the first floor, and then right above it, there's a second deck. At the time, there was a jacuzzi on that second deck, and you could sort of see maybe that the second deck might be have a slant to it, from the weight of the
Not
hot
good.
tub.
Yeah.
And so, there were things like that, but overall, it looked really good. My realtor checked it out for me. We did a walkthrough of it, and we decided to put in an offer. And because it was sitting on the market for a little while, um, even at that time, we were able to put an offer that was um, a little bit lower than what they were asking, which was nice because
Yeah.
at the time
Kind
things
of
were going for
unheard
over.
of because
Yeah,
I mean, you really
and
did get a good deal because shortly after that, it exploded in that area.
and,
Like things going, way over ask.
and honestly, we went into inspections. We got some inspections, and there were some things that did need to be done, and we got a credit back from them, as well. So
Wow.
that also worked into the deal. Like, there was I think I had it written down, but I think we had almost $19,000 worth of credit back, between everybody and everything. So that was quite a lot. It might have been 15. I can't quite remember. But it
You
was,
got a unicorn in that market. We
yeah,
haven't talked about all these details. Wow.
yeah.
That's a great deal considering where that market went and quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it was to fix that double level deck was a little bit
Okay.
pricey and stuff like that. So I think that was a big part of it. And the sellers recognized that they were gonna have to fix that anyway,
Okay.
really to make the sale. So we took the credit back, and we had our own guys fix that.
And you
And
said you walked through it. So did you visit? Like
I
did you walk through it before you bought it?
so I did not actually walk through it. This was sight unseen
Okay.
for me. And to be honest, like, so while I was, doing my research and learning about the different areas and looking at the different markets, part of my goal was to say, hey, if I want to do real estate investment, I need to be able to buy in places that I'm not in, and I need to be able to learn about the market. So it was kind of a pandemic goal of mine to be able to buy something far away and to make it work. Um,
Did it.
uh,
You did
I
it.
I
Which
half
so
did
many
it,
people are
and I
afraid.
I half did it, and I finished. I think I've now gotten to the point where it's working. So, it took a couple years, and it took finding the right
Well,
people to
Well, we'll talk
really
about
make it
that,
work.
and yeah, that's true. And like the remote stuff is hard, but you did take a brave leap and do
So
that. So I guess we should talk about that. You got a great deal. You had an awesome house. It sleeps a lot of people. Where so you knew you were going to make it a short term rental when you bought it. So how
yes.
quickly did you needed a property manager? So this is before we knew each other. So how did you go about that and like finding people like because building a team, especially for remote property ownership, is tough. So
So
how did that go for you?
so that was actually really a tough situation. I interviewed, I think, three property managers at the time. One of them was referred by my real estate agent. One of them was the other two were, one of them was like Evolve or Vacasa or one of those guys, and I was just wanted to hear what they had to say. And one of them was a local one that had they're a bigger group in the Western North Carolina mountains, um,
Okay.
and the truth is that I wasn't excited about the big companies because I felt like they would just treat my house like any other house, and they wouldn't give me the focused attention that I wanted. They wouldn't really see my house like this is a great house and this is a great opportunity. Let me try to drive traffic to this house. They had 100 houses and they needed to drive traffic to all of them. So I didn't want to be so much one in a huge number. So I went with a smaller
Okay.
company that was referred to me by my real estate agent. And I appreciate my real estate agent very much, but this wasn't a good match for us, I think, at the end of the day. But they helped get the house set up, which was really great. We did a lot of work. We spent a lot of money. We bought the place furnished, but we did not realize at the time when we bought it furnished that I think from all the furniture that was in the house, it's a 4-bedroom house that sleeps 13, and at the time that we bought the house, we thought, okay, it's furnished. Maybe change some linens, change some bedding. Spruce up the kitchen, that type of thing. Fix a few things here and there. Um, I think we have only the futon bed left and two chairs that are in the game room. Is
Oh,
all the furniture that we have left from the original purchase, and that was in
oh,
2021. I think everything else has been replaced.
wow.
Um, so,
That's an expense.
yeah, so that was more money than I expected. That was part of the challenge of getting this place set up. And we bought in August of 2021, and we didn't get it open until October of 2021. So it took a
Okay.
couple months to actually go live, which
Okay.
was a little bit frustrating. I was hoping since it was furnished to go live sooner, but it is what it is, and sometimes life throws
It's
you a curveball, and you got to work with what you got. And we opened. We did not have the hot tub at the time,
okay.
because we removed it from that second level deck because the weight was too much. But we opened anyway, and things were going okay at first. And the property managers we hired seemed to be doing a pretty good job. They wanted to skew the property a little bit towards the luxury end of things. And if you look at the house, it's really a comfortable, cozy cabin. It's not so much of a luxury property. It's beautiful and it's rustic and it's great and it's charming and it can fit your family and another family too. And it's a really wonderful place. But it's not the Four Seasons Hotel. It's not supposed to be that.
Yeah.
That's not the vibe.
Well, what I think is so interesting about what you just said, and I've said this to members of our team that work with you as well, obviously our cleaning team and our landscaper and everything. But from the time that you and I met and we started to talk about your property and like getting it set up, I was always like, you're just one of my like favorite types of owners. I love you as a person. You're an amazing person, and we've become friends. But from a business standpoint, you have a really good understanding of your property. Like what you just said, a lot of owners won't say. A lot of owners look at their property and their ego's involved and they're like, my property is worth 2x what it's actually worth per night, and my property's like that kind of stuff is what hinders people, I think, in this business, where they can't really look at their property and just kind of be subjective about like their competition and like what their house really is. And I do want to talk about kind of where that property management took your house, because it did do you quite a disservice where they were overpricing it. But I think from an owner standpoint and from an investor standpoint, for everybody that's watching this, that's really important. You've got to kind of take the rose colored glasses off and look at your property and be like, this is what it is, and make whatever improvements you can. I love your house. I think it's a fantastic house and your guests love it, but it's marketed correctly at this point, as opposed to, like you said, it's not a luxury property, but it's an amazing space for people to make memories and spend time together. So I've just always appreciated that about you. We have really good conversations. You're really, like, you've become very educated about property management. I know you like read Avery Carl's book, and we were talking about it in some of our first conversations, but you're very realistic about your property. And that is why you're having success now, because you understand what you have and you're not trying to like make it something that it's not.
Yeah, thank you. No, I totally agree. Like, I mean, other than saying nice things about me, which I appreciate anyway, but it's exactly that. I mean, you can't try to force something to be something it's not. And
No.
the house is lovely, but it's not perfect. And it kind of is the way it is. So
what
from
started
there,
to go wrong? Yeah. Like what? Take us down that road. Like, when did you start having red flags, and what was going on?
So from there, I told myself I would give this property management team a year, because I thought that was like a really good barometer of like, would they do a good job? And I did sign a year contract with them, but I really wanted to make sure, like, give them a chance to show what they can do and make this property work.
Super fair.
And it started out pretty strong. Things were fine. It wasn't making money because we were putting in so much money to get it going. And I felt like a little bit of, we didn't have the hot tub yet. And I felt like that was a big draw. And like, a 12-person house without a hot tub, it sort of feels like you're missing something. And I get it. So I wanted to give them that leeway to also like get the hot tub in. And that took a while. So we got that in, and we rolled around to the next summer, and we had some good bookings, but it was fine. Everything was okay. And I was like, okay, well, if from here it goes up, we're okay. But if from here it's going down, it's not so good. And then I started noticing some things that weren't so great. And they had to do with things that didn't have to do with the house, but had to do with the service. And it was things like getting bad reviews on cleaning, and multiple of them. And then like when things would go not quite right, I would look at the responses, and I would just check up every once in a while. How's the house doing? What's the calendar look like? What do the reviews look like? And I'd touch base with the property managers on a fairly regular basis and ask them, hey, how are things going? What are we looking at in the near future? Is there some reason why we're not booking as far ahead as we were before? Is something changing in the market? Very standard questions. And they gave me mostly good answers at that point. And so I was reasonably satisfied with that. But then when I started seeing, reviews coming back not so good, and then responses to reviews, like not taking ownership of something negative going on and sort of just saying, well, that was because the neighbor didn't do something right or something like that. It's like
that's a red flag.
Like it smelled a little bit like the septic tank was, getting too full. The neighbor didn't pump their septic tank. Maybe it was our septic tank that needed to be pumped.
Speaking of your septic, not to jump ahead, but it's a good opportunity for hospitality, because you're talking about your property manager, your previous ones that were maybe not taking out accountability and ownership. And I just remember when we first went into your house, the pictures that your property management company had put up about your septic system. And do you remember the signs they had? It was something like to the effect of, don't flush anything other than toilet paper. And if you do, we'll know it's you and we'll charge you. Like, it was like a very aggressive sign. And I was like, this is not hospitality. Like, so I see what you're saying. And I don't know when you actually saw those signs, but when I saw them, I was like, uh-oh.
Their responses tended to be on the colder, aggressive end, and that doesn't work for a hospitality business. And short-term rentals are a hospitality business. You're directly competing with hotels, but like you're one unit, and that's all you are. So you need to be the best that you can be, and you need to have that frame of mind to say, hey, we're in the hospitality space. We need to do what we can to make our guests happy, which is something you do so well.
100%. And I think for anybody watching this, whether they're self-managing or they're looking for a property manager, I've done property management for a long time, like in and out of roles, as I've, for the last 20 years or so, I've helped in long-term and in short-term. And I think that that's the thing that and a lot of property managers aren't invested. So, I'm an investor too. We have that in common. So I look at it from a very different approach, but I feel like it's hard to find good property managers. But I think that's what every owner should be looking for, is that they put hospitality first, because a lot of property managers get burnt out. It is a job that you have to really enjoy. You have to like chaos. You have to like fixing situations and problems and your phone ringing all the time. Like, that's just something that you have to be okay with, and being able to talk to all different types of people. And I think a lot of property managers, either they get too big or they just get burnt out. And that's probably maybe a little bit of what you were dealing with, because there's really, in my opinion, no excuse for being kind of cold to guests, because they're representing you at that point. Like, it's your property and your bottom line that's affected if they're not polite to your guests. So
Yeah, and I would throw this, I don't think they're bad people by any means. I do think that they mismanaged the property, but I think also, the the property didn't fit them either, right? Like,
I see.
they wanted it to be a luxury property. So now my property seems like a headache to them because it's not a luxury property. They want to say it's a luxury property, and so they're positioning it to guests as a luxury property, and then guests are dissatisfied and complaining to them. So now my property has become a headache to them.
Yeah. And probably they were positioning it as a luxury property because it sleeps a lot of people, and they were hoping they could get more money for it. And then that becomes a slippery slope. So so you started seeing some bad reviews for cleaning and things like that. You were seeing some not great responses. So and I want you to tell people about finding me, which is an interesting story. It kind of changed mine and Adam's lives, my husband's life a little bit too, just even you reaching out to us. But what was like your tipping point? Like, what happened that you're like, okay, I've got to do something different?
So aside from hearing, I also, by the way, spoke to our handyman that we had, and I heard different things from them about other properties, and I heard about what was going on and seeing the reviews that are going on with my property. And I was like, okay, so this is starting to be a problem. And then the bookings kind of dried up, and like I was like, we haven't had a booking in 2 weeks, and I'm like, what's going on here? I know it was like January, February, and I was like, I know it's the slow season, but we haven't been getting any bookings for June, July, or August. This is usually the time of year when we'd start getting June, July, August bookings, and I knew that, and I was literally nothing came in. So I emailed the property managers, hey, checking in, what's going on, want to know, hey, I know you're working really hard, but we haven't had a booking in a while. So, and we haven't had anything from Airbnb, which is, 80% of the market or more. I don't really know exactly how much, but it's a huge percentage of the market. And so I reached out to them,
What
and
did they say?
they
What
were
did they
like,
say
"Oh,
was
people, the timeline for booking is really shortened a lot, shortened a huge amount. Like, it's now people are booking a week out or 2 weeks out." And I was like, "That's, this is like a house for 12. People are planning summer breaks at some point. Like, we should be seeing some bookings." And so this went on for 2, 3 weeks. Well, maybe 2 months even, because like January and February, I started noticing these things a lot more and not getting any bookings. And I was just like, this is too much. And then it started to be when I'd email them, I wouldn't hear from them at all for a long time. I'd text, I'd call, I'd email, I'd send them an email saying, hey, I've texted, I've called, I've emailed, and you're not responding to me. Um,
they
finally,
ghosted you?
finally,
Like,
I
big
was just
time.
like, you know what? I'm canceling our contract.
Wow.
Um,
Did they call you
and
back then?
and so I sent them an email saying that I was canceling immediately. I technically, in my contract, I had a 30-day or 60-day notice that I had to give them to cancel. And I basically just told them, you know, and this is probably where some of my legal background comes in. I told them, you guys have breached your contract with me. You guys aren't representing the property. We've had no bookings, and like, I'm contacting you and you're not responding at all. And then I found out that the entity that I had contracted with, like, because they had set up an LLC, didn't exist anymore, and that made me worried
Oh,
for a number of
no.
reasons. And I said, I can't have a contract with an entity that doesn't exist, so this contract is completely void. Um,
I did not know that. Oh, wow.
and so I said, it's immediate. Like, contract immediately canceled. I'm not giving you 60 days notice. And I was like, I blocked off the whole rest of the calendar for the whole rest of the year. So it's not like we're going to get anybody in. If there is anybody, you can move them to any other house you want. I don't care. Like, but they're not staying at my property. Like, we're done.
And was this like I'm trying to
Um,
think about on your
I
timeline.
believe this was March of 2023.
Okay. That makes sense. And then, so ballpark, and I know we're going to get into, because obviously you set up your property, and then we're going to talk about how, like, when I came in, we kind of had to reset up your property, so you invested more. But what do you think, just for like the, our viewers and stuff that are watching, ballpark, if you're willing to share, like, what do you think it cost you with the bad property management up to the point that we had to re-go, like, in the lost bookings, and then, like, what were you trying to get out of the property to cash flow, and where did you end up when they kind of started mismanaging
So
it?
lost bookings, I couldn't calculate out for you. That would be really hard. Um,
Yeah. I
but
guess I just mean empty calendar. Yeah. What did that
but
cost
so
you?
empty calendar. So I was making zero, and the property cost me about $3,000 a month.
Okay.
With that's mortgage, property taxes, interest, PITI plus utilities. Was running roughly $3,000 a month. Um,
Which I'll tell you again is still an amazing deal for the area. It's not good that you wouldn't have bookings, but
yeah.
you're set
So
up with a good
so that
property. But how
that was
long
hurt.
did that go on?
That was hurting quite a bit. Well, I mean, I would say February, March, April, May, and we started booking. Was it
Air
July
conditioner.
15th of 23?
I think so, because your air
So,
conditioner, yeah, that took us a
yeah.
little bit of time.
So it took us a little bit
Okay,
of time.
well, I think this is really neat too to talk about, because you, as far as I'm concerned, like I've already said, I mean, you're a great owner to work with, and you're very well educated and understand your property. So I think this is an interesting story to share with people, because it can happen to anyone. Like, if you're, you know what I mean, like, you knew what you were doing. You thought you hired good people and started out okay, and it can kind of just turn and then snowball. So
Right.
I know you got even more educated after this happens, because
So
you grilled me a little bit, which I think was good given your experience. But you had an idea of what was going on, and it went south. So I think it's good to share with people.
yeah. So I think one of the things I really learned was, you really have to get to know your property managers and what they're looking to do with your property, and make sure they align with what your property should be doing or could be doing.
Yeah.
And really don't, as you said, take out those colored glasses if your property is not, you know, a absolute stunner. Don't try to market it as a stunner. And by the way, if we have show notes and there's a link to my property, I'd love for anybody to book there. Take a look. It's a great property. It is a beautiful, beautiful property. It is so charming. It is wonderful. But
We
you
will
know,
absolutely put a link to your house in the description, because I want people to see it. And
yeah,
I actually think that when we first started to talk about your house, because we signed on, and I manage I currently manage remotely, and so it was a month or two before I could walk it. And I just remember you were kind of saying like, well, it's not fancy, it's not this, and I was like, but his pictures are pretty good, and like we walked, like, this is a great space. So it was almost like you had taken that on because they were trying to sell it as luxury. And I think it maybe affected you, because I was like, your house is great.
yeah.
Like, it really is.
I'll,
It's just setting expectations, I
I'll
guess.
be honest. I was pretty down on my property by the time I met you.
Yeah.
I was, and it kind of made me depressed, because I had this goal that I was going to be able to buy this property. It was going to start cash flowing really well. I'd invest, I'd maybe buy two, three, four, five more in the area, because it would be really a great opportunity. And it just all didn't work, because the property wasn't functioning as it was supposed to. It wasn't doing what it was supposed to do.
Okay.
Um,
So then let's talk about,
and,
like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So by the time, anyway, so I spent a lot of money refurnishing it and getting it set up and getting it ready. And then
Right.
after realizing the managers were not doing what we needed them to do, and just not really working well with the property, and it was time to let them go. I let them go. When I sent them that email, it was quite a lengthy email. They agreed immediately. They did not push
Okay.
back at all. They were like, "We're sorry to see you go. No problem. See you later."
Okay.
And I was like, "Great." I did not want to have to fight that out, because that would have been exhausting and a waste of time and money. So I'm
Yeah.
glad they just sort of went off, and they're probably managing other properties. I hope they're doing a great job. Um, and then I went to other property management companies. I looked at a few. And this brings me to how I found you, L'Oreal.
Yeah.
And
It's a funny story. I it's awesome. I'm curious as to
Well,
You've told me, but I guess I wanted to share it with people because it kind of changed both of us. It's helped your property. It's changed our business too.
so,
And you were a big part of that.
yeah. So I mean, I'll just get right into the story of it. I used what Avery Carl would call the enemy method. I think is what she calls it.
Yeah,
Um,
she does.
but she
Check out
usually
your
uses it.
competition.
She uses it for finding, your house cleaning crew and stuff like that to sort of find people who can do work in the area. Basically, what I did is I looked around my house and in other areas. I looked for houses that looked kind of like mine, but where the calendars were full or pretty full. And I was trying to find different ones. So I put a heart on each one. I made my own little Waynesville, Maggie Valley subsection, and I'd put a heart on each one. I had like 10 or 12 houses that were on there that were like cute and looked good and had like really good bookings. And I was like, okay, if they're doing it, then I should be able to do it too. My house is pretty close to theirs. It's also nice. It's decorated, like it's similar in style. We're not out of range with one's super luxury and one's super, rustic. Like we're all in
Right.
that medium range. And I noticed that I think four of the houses were run by this couple named L'Oreal and Adam. And I was like, huh, they must have something going on. Either like I just like their houses, or like this is like really in sync. So on Airbnb, you can't exactly track down people perfectly, but L'Oreal and Adam's pretty common, L'Oreal not so common name, and I noticed the name of their cottages were I think Keaton Cottages.
Yep, that's
Um,
our company name.
and so I did a little sleuthing. I typed in L'Oreal and Adam Keaton. Hopefully that works. And there you popped up, and I called you, and I was like, hey, I'm going through this issue. I need a new property manager for my Western North Carolina property, and can I talk to you about that? Maybe we could have a conversation. And you answered, and you were amazing right off the bat. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to change everything.
Well, it's so funny because it was life changing in a lot of ways for us. Because at the time that you were reaching out, I was just renewing my real estate license and starting to do this whole like, okay, we're going to be managing for other people because I had one other owner that did the same thing you did. And that method, by the way, like I teach to people for, that the enemy method, which I think it's just good market research. It's just go out and look around and see what your competition's doing and are they full or not. I use it all the time just in a good way to learn about your market. But I just remember because I was sitting at work and I saw Los Angeles, California. Nobody calls me from Los Angeles, California. I'm on the East Coast. And usually it's a spam call. And I don't even know why I picked up the phone in all honesty. Like it is some kind of weird, like divine intervention. And we started to talk and I was just like, yeah, this is where we're going. We're going to do property management. So it was really cool. It was very, it was humbling for us as well. Like it was really great. And we were just like so happy to be able to help. And it's been just a great relationship and a great friendship
Yeah.
at this point as we just kind of like, I think just learned from each other. I love, like you went out to your house. I know you flew out there again
Yeah.
while we were kind of transitioning and you told me you were reading Avery Carl's book on the plane. And I was like, this is really cool. Like you were very like ready and you had a lot of good ideas. So I know we basically kind of decided we were going to start over. And so I know unfortunately for you, and this has been tough, we had to kind of reopen your house and you had
Yeah.
put in a lot of money. But one of the things that I always kind of talk to people about, and I know that you had to deal with some of this stuff, like your septic came up, which a lot of people that maybe watch this don't deal with septics in Western North Carolina. Everybody's got a septic practically, and they need to work because
Yeah.
if they don't work or they back up, you have very unhappy people and a big mess, literally. So we had to talk about your septic and then your air conditioning unit, your
Yeah.
HVAC. But I commend you for it. Just so everybody knows, like we were starting to work on setting up your house. Our crew was in there. Like we were doing some little changes. I think you initially were maybe worried that we needed to repaint. And I was like, no, you've got this great fireplace. Like I think we changed out some bed linens, added some throw pillows, and you were
Yeah.
very ready to do that. But it was like a minor redesign.
Yes.
But I remember that Vicky, our cleaning team, the head of our cleaning team was in there and she's like, his air conditioning's not working and it's really hot while we're doing setup. And I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And I had to come like, well, we're going to check it. I was like, oh, I was just devastated for you that then on top of that, you needed an HVAC system. But, if you want to be a successful rental, you kind of need it. It's not that was rough.
It was a tough moment, but in the scheme of that house, it was not the toughest time. So
Yeah.
like it was on the we were on the cusp of actually making it great and like really doing an amazing job with it. And yeah, I mean, I think when you came in, I had talked to other property managers before when I was interviewing people, and some were saying, "Oh, you need to change this, you need to change that, you need to fix this. Like this property won't work unless you do this." And I was like, okay, well, let me see what I can do. And so when I was talking to you, I was like, do I need to paint it? I do need to paint it. The paint on the walls doesn't look so good. I did go out there in that transition period to stay at the house and see what it was like. Um, I was told it had been deep cleaned before I went there by the old property managers. It was not. It was clean enough, but I stayed there and it was lovely, and it's a great house. Like, and so but I saw, like, I took an inventory of what was there, and I got to meet. I found this to be really important for me. We didn't meet on that trip, but you introduced me to your house cleaners, Vicky, and your painters, and your landscaper, and the different people who are going to be doing various parts of the work on the property,
Yeah.
because the minor things that we did on the inside, I mean, it was a few furnishing pieces, and it was nothing crazy. A lot of bed
Yep.
linens and that type of things, which you need to replace every once in a while anyway. I think it was Jamie built out a walkway with laurels going all the way to the fire pit,
Yep.
and regraded and made a pathway that was like not in stone pavers, but like in a rock path to get there. So that way you really knew where you were walking to. You had like a destination. And we put up
And
string
you did
lights.
like the party lights on your deck, like
We
real smart. You made smart decisions about
Yeah,
how to make your space. Like there's a lot of little moments in your property on both the outdoors
right.
and the indoors.
There
There's a lot of places for people to go.
Exactly. I mean, you can go out to the deck with the nice lights, with the nice string lights up there, and look out at the view, and it's beautiful and charming, and sit out there and have a cup of coffee. You can go to the fire pit and roast marshmallows or whatever it is you want to do over there, and hang out by the fire pit. And there's a nice walkway to get there now. There's a platform up a few steps where you could hang out. I don't know exactly what you would want to do over there because it's very small, but it's like a charming little area to sort of maybe have a little moment of peace away from everybody. Um,
Yep.
and there's just a bunch of different little areas that you can just make moments in and have a nice little space.
You did
And
that so well. Like you really did. I thought
well,
I
I
was
was going to say
amazed that.
you did that so well because
Well,
you helped me get to the people to do that and make sure that we did the right things in those places.
well, and I think that's really important for anybody that's in this type of, you know, if they're investing this way, whether they have a property manager or they're doing it themselves. Like you really need a team of people you can trust, and that's been a blessing that Adam and I have developed there. Even when we were doing it remotely, it's been great to have people that you can trust, that you can go, hey, like I know it's not just like he's a landscaper, like Jamie can like redesign your whole yard, and like you were so willing to do a lot of that stuff. But like, I think at the end of the day, your big investments were we had to fix your air conditioning, and then your septic, I was worried, didn't turn out to be as
It's
bad as
not
we thought. It
expensive.
was a simple fix, but we got rid of those scary signs that told people that like they were going to be charged if they did something weird. I mean, that was kind of silly, but I mean, what I loved too is that like, we did all of this. You were very open to it. I was really trying to be protective of your budget. I mean, I felt, but we did need to get, I mean, you've got a big house, so new linens
Yeah,
and new throw pillows and some new decor, but like, and then new pictures. It can be an investment. But
yeah,
then what I loved is that, as much as you have researched this and you've worked on this, you're obviously, very intelligent, you're an attorney, you're already a real estate investor, like you were willing to listen to me. And I remember conversations we had where I was like, okay, well, we're going to open your house and I'm going to undercut your competition's pricing
oh yeah,
because we're going to go in there guns blazing and we're going to fill your house and we're going to get great reviews. And that's it. Like, this is how we're going to do it. Because it was a new place and it was a new property. And I think that a lot of people still misjudge that whole occupancy thing and how important it is, especially on Airbnb. You've got to get occupied first. You've got to fill your calendar, and then you build a reputation. And as you build a reputation, you raise your prices. And so you have been like 100% on board with anything that I've suggested. When Vicky or cleaning team calls and says, "Hey, we need this," you're like, "Okay." So I guess we should. Yeah, I don't know what you want to say about how that process was for
well,
you and like the difference and like,
well,
yeah,
I don't. I would say that when we talked about that initially, I was already so on board with that idea because I had talked to the previous property managers and I was like, we're not getting bookings. We have this place set at like 380 a night or something like that. And like we have zero bookings. Like I don't want to wait for, one booking a month at that price. Why don't we fill it like $100 a night and full is much better than empty. And I didn't know about the Airbnb algorithm and how strong that plays. But when I searched for the house and I would type in 12 people, Waynesville, pet, like everything that would narrow down the list of the houses that could accommodate it, my house wouldn't show up on the Airbnb algorithm because it wasn't
It
booked.
had fallen out of search.
It had fallen out
Yeah.
of search. And that's a deal killer. I mean, that'll just kill your house. Like there's nothing you can't get out of that.
And you were right about like, in that area, and I love houses that have hot tubs, but I'm, none of my personal ones there do, but I'm in big houses, it's really helpful to have in that market. And you had added one, but you also, and it's funny because we were just talking a little bit about dogs in our personal lives, that I know like you don't have a dog, but like you made the house pet friendly, which a lot of people can be afraid of, but has so helped you because one, you get some extra revenue from it being pet friendly. Mm-hmm. But you're also in more searches because a lot more people are traveling with pets. So like even little things like that, like little choices that you made just make your house more visible to people. And it has like, I think really kind of paid off. I mean, that house is beloved at this point. Like people go and we've really had a lot of really good reviews and like you've made a lot of smart decisions. And it's so much fun to work with you because, you appreciate your house for what it is. And like I mean, I guess I like it because you listen to me when I give you a suggestion, which is
no,
nice,
but it
you make my job easier.
But when you make perfect sense, like how could I not listen, right? It's like, you're like, I'm going to drop the price and I want to undercut the area because I want people to see your house and say, I can stay at that house. It's a few bucks more, but I'm going to try your house even though it's newer on the market because it's less expensive. And I'm going to give it a shot. Like, why not? We're going on a little trip. Let's give it a shot. And we undercut the market there for a little while. And I think we position ourselves as being a good value. And I think people see that and they're like, look, we're traveling with a family of 10. It's, two families, maybe two families of 5 or whatever it is. Like it's a lot of us. Where are we going to stay? And there's not very many options for an affordable or relatively affordable place for that many people to come together.
Well, and I think it's another good lesson for everybody is like, look at your market and fit into a niche and solve a problem. And a lot of the bigger houses in the area are way overpriced or they're luxury and they don't fit for what a lot of people want to do. And I think also, as like you spoke to earlier, it's a big house. So traditionally bigger houses, if it's going to get booked further out because your house is not going to sleep 2 people. We've done it once or twice, but generally speaking, that the 2 to 4 people are not looking for your property. It's just too big for them. But when we price it well, and sometimes that's, what you need to do.
I was going to say we had a couple of bookings where it was like 4 people coming in, a few of them, where it's 4 people coming in. And I think they booked our house because it was such a good value for so much space that they were like, yeah, why would we get like a 2-bedroom, little place over there when we can have this 4-bedroom big house? And it's in this great area and it's more secluded and it's private and it's great. Like, they looked at it and they saw value too.
I think it's been really good. And when we talk about expectations, it's really helped your reviews, I think too, because people see it and go like, wow, this was a great deal. And this is a great house for what I paid for it. And I think, especially in the last couple of years, a lot of property managers and owners and investors have been reaching for like the 2021-22 numbers where like everybody's just trying to get out and they paid whatever to get, out of their house. And now it's back to like, I would even say it's not a bad market. It's just more normal. And so, people are looking at prices a little bit differently. And there's too many people that are still stuck in those old prices thinking that's what their house is worth, but it's what the market can bear. And, the nice thing is there's a seasonality to the market that we're in. And it's a 4-season rental because we do have skiers in the ski resort, which is amazing, but it's slower at certain times of the year. But your house is booking at exactly what I wanted to do, higher rates and good value, or good high numbers when we're busy, but we're still getting people in slow season, which is
the difference between February and March of a year before, I mean, and now, it's unbelievable. And it really has to do with the house is the same house, right? But it was out
Yeah.
of the search, so people couldn't find it. It was being marketed the wrong way. So even when people could find it, like the marketing for it didn't fit what it was. So people didn't really like it as much. And the responsiveness of the property manager who was running the place, like you're so good with the incoming guests. You know how to like talk to everybody. You can talk about the quirks of the house or what you need to do or what's going on there with, and explain things to them, to the guests. So that way they know what to expect and what's going on. And you can tell them the advantages of whatever's going on. You're 15 minutes from the ski resort. Why don't you go skiing for the day or whatever it is in the winter? Um, and it's such a difference in just how you operate versus what it was before. I mean, I think in February we had 24 of 29 days booked. Is that right? In February
Yeah, we
in
in slow
Maggie
season.
Valley
Yeah.
or Waynesville. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's just an unbelievable number. I mean, like I'm bragging, but really it's you that made this happen. But like it's
We're
unbelievable
a team.
how
Yeah,
that
no,
the difference.
it's been kind of amazing, and your house it's great. It's exactly kind of like what I would hope that it would do. It's done
Yeah,
really well, and
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 I
when we
also oh, go ahead.
I said, and when we first talked, you said I'm gonna work on getting your place booked all the time. I'm gonna
Yep.
talk to my house cleaners, make sure we can do back to back bookings because it's a big house,
Yep.
and we're gonna get it done. And that's
Yeah.
what you're doing.
And that was really important. I'm glad you said that because I was worried about that at first. And I did talk to our cleaning team, and they're amazing. And they're like, no, we can
Yeah,
do back to backs, because that is a downside for, I think, a lot of investors when they get into bigger houses is there's so many cleaners that, and I understand it's a lot. You have to find the right cleaning team that has enough people that can turn big houses, because they turn your house on a back to back and you're not the only one that they have to do that day. And
yeah,
you're 4 plus a loft. There's a lot of people. There's 3 floors to your house. Um, but if you don't, and I think that's really important, like even just when people are thinking about investments, like if you can't do back to backs, you're taking how many days out of the month already that you're automatically losing revenue because
yeah.
you've got to close a night on either side of your booking. So that was really important to me, was finding you a cleaner that could do back to backs, because if they couldn't, you were going to lose money.
And
And
your cleaning team is phenomenal. I mean, the number of compliments that we get on how clean the place is, it's like it's. I mean, I'm coming from a place where like we were getting forget 4 stars. I mean, it was not very. It was really not good.
yeah,
Like we were not getting good reviews on our cleaning, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like these are. This is a professional property management team, and they should have professional cleaners or reasonably professional cleaners. And we're getting bad reviews on the cleaning, like too often, which is it was a problem. And now it's
it's a
like the
problem.
place was clean, it's beautiful, the views are great. I don't have long horizon views. I have treetop views and they're pretty, but like, I get compliments on the views because I think people take in the whole ambiance and they just love the whole place.
Well,
Um,
and it's how we market it too. We market it as, I think I have it written as like tucked in the trees, and it's a private, because it is. It's just this.
yeah,
It's a really, it's a great lesson for everybody, for just like everything from guests and hospitality, managing expectations. But then I also think what's really important for owners and for property managers out there, or for people that are looking at investors, like getting into this, because a lot of people need property managers and a lot of people can
yeah,
self manage, but you've got to find the right fit. And I'm a very hands on property manager, not just with the guests, but with the owners. And I feel like that's really important. And it's not something that I want to lose, which is, I think, why our properties have been successful, because there's heart in it and there's a personal touch in it. And it's not, your phone call isn't going to go unanswered. Like, I feel bad if I don't answer your text immediately. Like, if it wasn't right by my phone, or, it's not going to go to a call center overseas. Your guests
right.
aren't getting like somebody that's never been to your house or doesn't know anything about it to answer their questions. So I think everybody should be looking for that, because I think it gets lost that so much of the reputation you build is about, one, everything in that property functioning and being cleaning is amazing, is so important, but you had to make those little adjustments. If we had done everything, but you had like limped that HVAC system along and said like, I'm not going to fix it
Oof.
right now, let's just service it, we would have got bad reviews, because it would have been hot in the middle of summer and we would have opened, and it would have, that's all it takes is,
Yeah.
so those things, they matter, all those things.
Yeah, and like we're out of that initial like bump up period where you get that little bump up on
Yep.
Airbnb for being a new listing.
Yep.
And we're
Yep.
still like the place gets seen all the time. I do check it out regularly, and I'm like, okay, we're on the first couple pages. We're in good shape. I
Yep.
don't check for 12 people now. I just check for 4 or 6 people, and it still pops up.
It still pops up. It's like
Like,
it's a guest favorite now on Airbnb, which is
hmm
a huge bonus.
yeah,
That's like one of they're always changing their algorithms and things like that, but a guest favorite is a huge thing right now. And I just love it so much, and I'm so grateful that we came on that we could talk about it, because it's just, I think there's so much for everybody to learn. Like
yeah.
if you're an investor or an owner, or trying to manage, like it takes some effort, but if you do some research and do things the right way, you can be successful.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that and say that we don't always do the right thing the first time around, right? You can mess things
Right.
up. You have the intention to do it right. You want to do a great job with it. I thought I was going to be making a 30% return, cash on cash return from day one. It turns out I spent twice as much and was earning less than half that each month, and then earning zero. And like, it it was really tough. I mean, I really soured on the market in the area because it was going so poorly, and it was just a drag. It was a drag on everything. But you can turn it around. You can change things. You can say, hey, look, I have a property manager. It's not working, or I have this house and something's not working right about it. Let me get some fresh eyes on this. Let me see if there's something else I can do. How can we change it to make it actually appeal to the people we want it to appeal to? Or maybe we're trying to appeal to the wrong people. Like maybe we should appeal to different people, and that will make it work. And we did everything with and we did everything with this property to turn it around, and we repositioned it, and now it works beautifully. I couldn't do it the first time around, but on take two we got it right. And I think that's the amazing thing about these properties, about real estate in general, is that even if you don't nail it on the first go around, there's some forgiveness there. Like you can make it work, you can make it turn around, and you have to accept when it's not working, and then figure out what to do to change that, and then find the right people to help you change that, and then go forward with the new path.
I love that so much because, yes, I've helped you with your property. A whole team has helped you, but the reason your property is successful is because you didn't give up on it. And you didn't take a hit and a loss and go like, oh, I'm just going to sell. Because you could have sold and you would have made some money selling it. Long term, you're going to make more money hanging on to it as a short term rental. I think everybody knows buy and hold over time has been a great way to, create more generational wealth. But you could have given up on it, and instead you like doubled down and you tried to figure it out. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. So I love what you said, because that's really true, and so much why I wanted to like share this with everybody, because you're the reason it's successful too. It's not just because you like found the right people, because you didn't give up on it. And honestly, if you'd sold it at the top of the market to somebody else to be a short-term rental, they would have a hard time making cash flow on it at the price you would have sold it for, because
Right.
now the nightly rate won't command that. I think your tenacity has helped you like to make this successful. So
And the interest
I
rate they
mean,
would have gotten.
oh goodness, yeah, that would, yeah, that's really true. Well, I really wanted to thank you for being on, David. I know we've been chatting for a while, so we should probably wrap it up. I do want to let
Yep.
everybody know, if you want to check out David's house, it is going to be in our show notes, but it is called the Rustic Mountain Retreat. It is in Waynesville, North Carolina. You can find it on Airbnb, but you can also find it on KeatonCottages.com, which is our website, and we will be happy to help you with a stay there. So thank you so much. And David, thank you. It's such a pleasure to work with you, and I'm so glad we got to have this talk.
Thank you so much, L'Oreal. I really appreciate it, and I really love being here. And congrats on the show. And I'm so excited to be a guest here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, so much. We'll see you soon.